So I think we are live. Good morning and welcome to our first info session on the joint call 5G communications technologies. So my name is Ralph. I'm working at Lux Innovation and I'm in charge of various digital topics. So I'll be moderating the session. Before I introduce our speakers, some words on InWink, which is the platform we are using, and on the process. So in the upper right corner, you see some buttons for questions and a chat window. So please don't hesitate to use them to pose any questions you have for the Q&A session afterwards. Then this session will also be recorded, and the recording will be available later on with the slides at the same site, so www.research-industry-collaboration.lu. I'll pass the link in the chat. This is also the platform where you need to place your project outline until February 9th for phase 1. And we will have 2 more sessions. So one is on December 12th on the eligibility criteria, and one will be on the 30th of January 2024 on the completeness check. That having said, let me introduce you to our speakers. With me are Mark Lewis from SMC, Saktivel Sundaram, FNR, Ernest Böver from the Ministry of Economy, and my colleague Erik Lauer from the RDI department, who will all present. That having said, Mark, the floor is yours.
Putting up my ideas on the joint call communication technologies is based on 4 actors which are joining on this call. The first is, of course, our connectivity and policy. And then we have 2 granting authorities. So the first one is the MECO, who is working more or less on the R&D schemes, basically covering everything which is economical. And we have the second authority is the research organization, which is dealing with all research issues. All this is put together or glued together by Lux Innovation. Thank you for having the platform for managing all these 3 actors together, and having also a platform for putting question answers relating. But Erik Lauer will come back to that later on. Before going a little bit more into the details, I would like to, let's say, to put the idea of this. The context of the call is, the basic thing is teaming up. So we would like to facilitate projects which are based on 5G communication technologies and which are valuable for parties. So we are working on a collaboration between economic actors and research actors. This will with the goal to create innovative and values which goes behind or beyond the usual calls we have done before. So we would like to increase the attractivities of Luxembourg as an innovation hub and based on 5G communication technologies. We have some calls already done, which were a little bit more or less done on our SMC platforms. So we had 2 grant calls. The first call was to trigger innovative projects to show or to prove the possibilities to use the 5G communication systems for projects. And the second one call was to showcase what 5G could be for people which are not in that 5G business as well. So there we had 2 conferences held the last few years, and the vision of this all was always to be amongst the leaders in 5G while seeking the most of the new communication technologies, and to prove that 5G can be an added value for the society and also for the companies as well. For this call, we chosen 4. The first topics which we identified was the smart cities. The second one is smart environment, and the third one is Industry 4.0, and last but not least is we renamed that to technologies. Everything which has to do with the technology of 5G itself is covered by this one. We are mostly focused, or we are mainly focusing on IoT applications on it. So we target to at least by using the 5G technologies as a transport medium, and we are not, let's say, going for an OTT system where we have some, let's say, video platforming or streaming or something like this. This is really purely done on IoT level. So we would like to foster the importance of using IoTs. So what are the let's say subtopics within these main topics which could be used? So this is a non-exhaustive list of use cases. So we have traffic monitoring and we have autonomous driving, we have shipment tracking, we have construction site management, and we have facility management. Traffic monitoring and control, just to mention digital twin. We have autonomous driving, just to have mentioned, and Tesla driving around autonomously, having all the information, traffic jam ahead or something like this, all together to do a planning on the server on their journey. We have the shipment tracking, where what time can I expect it? Do I have to arrange something for the tracking the shipment to be arrived? Construction site management is getting important more and more. How can I manage my construction site? What do I need to advance in my construction? What do I need to plan? Where do I have to put my stuff just to keep my site running? And then once this construction site is erected, we still have some kind of facility management. What are my main figures of my building? What can I do to improve it? What do I have, or what has been done during the construction if in case of a failure? A remark 5 or 4 years later. So this is all all covered by this first topic. Smart environment is getting more and more important. Is monitoring of environmental conditions. We are talking about global warming. So what can we do? What are the impacts of the weather conditions actually, and what can we do to optimize our let's say our yields to benefit a little bit from the global warming also, and to reduce the CO2 levels for harvesting or something like this. This is going to resources management. Resources management is basically the same. So what can we do to reduce electricity consumption, reduce heat losses, reduce gas consumption? So this is something like this. Smart farming has been already covered by the monitoring of environmental conditions. So but the smart farming is more or less focused on yield production, when do I have to do spray the yield? When can I do my harvesting? So this is monitoring of environmental conditions, and then the fast response to extreme meteorological weather conditions is of course also due to the global warming. So we have weather conditions or weather changes which are extreme, which are extremely fast, and there has to be a kind of a monitoring system or where we can see, okay, what happened and what can we do that this can be some temporary measurement stations. This can be some emergency response systems which are already in place, but there have to be a development onto that to optimize these systems and to create a kind of a standardized systems. Moving over to Industry 4.0 has also a little bit also to do with the global warming. Is how can we optimize our processes? How can we optimize the energy consumptions which are needed to produce stuff? So we are talking about mobile network based lands, private mobile networks, or network slicing from operators. We do machine learning, edge computing, say Internet of Things. So all these values collected from the actors within an industry platform can already pre-processed and can be, let's say, used for optimizing the production. We have the predictive maintenance, where we have the actors which are collecting data and say, okay, we have something happening in the next 6 months to schedule a downtime. So how can we do that? Do we have other processes which need to be scheduled for downtime as well? So this is then also an optimization on the production. We have warehouse logistics, goes a little bit with the same which I mentioned beforehand with the smart or with the building management. So advance if the goods which are needed for producing the product are they on site? When do we have them on site? It's not that you create a warehouse today where you have goods stocked for a year before they are used for the production. So this is also a process which is a little bit on time delivery. So we have an optimization needed for there, and then we have the connected production process. So this is where we have some kind of a pre-processing, and we have an after processing which need to interact so that we can an optimization on the whole platform as well. The last topic we identified is the technologies. So we are talking about more and more on satellite-based mobile network communications, NTN, which is also getting a little bit of a topic if I do some kind of let's say an extrapolation for 6G. We have fixed wireless accesses. What can we do to improve the fixed wireless access in areas where we have a lack of networks, or let's say copper or the fiber networks? And then we still have the issue that we have the EMF measurements and network planning and improvements, where we try to identify the antenna with the new systems. Where can we create a better coverage, and we use as network planning tools to improve the planning of the antennas, which is also, let's say, also an issue for from concerned people outside the, let's say, the technical community, where they say, okay, I still have a problem with my my antenna next to my house or something like this. So what can we do to improve that and say that we have a fully coverage network of an area, and we have let's say an optimized mesh network setup where we do reduce the direct exposure to an absolute minimum. So these are the four topics we identified, and these two are now into the new machinery we created, where we have the Avenir and the MECO on the other hand side, and then they are explaining now to us what are their concern and their topics which are needed for responding to these topics. And I would like to hand over then to Saktival, who is taking over now and explaining the Avenir part, research part of this call.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, fellow colleagues. Good morning, everyone. It's nice to see you, of course, virtually. I don't see everybody here, but at least I can warmly welcome you all to this joint call on 5G communication technologies. Myself, Shaktivel Sundaram. I am working as a program and innovation manager at the National Research Fund, Luxembourg. Some of you already know this organization. If you are coming from a company, maybe you might have not heard what we do. I would like to give a single slide that talks about what FNR is. FNR is the main funder of research activities in Luxembourg, especially to the public research. So we work on having 4 important national research priorities. What are those? You can see here, these are basically the personalized healthcare, which is mainly for better health with personalized solutions, innovations in disease preventions, and so on. And the second pillar is the industrial and service transformations, which is one of the topics what we are aiming to cover in this joint 5G call. Also, we have the sustainable and responsible development and 21st century education. So these are the research priorities we at FNR care about. So all those funding instruments you come across will fall into these research priorities. And moving to the next slide, what I would like to talk here is about how the research taking to the society. So you might have heard about the technology readiness levels. Basically, the universities, the public research institutions where get funded by us focus mainly on the research side, the technology readiness level from 1 to 3. And the industries, the private partners, I assume that there are some companies involved here, will generally get focus on the deployment of the technology, that is the technology readiness level 8 and 9. The innovation programs at FNR focuses on funding gap between the technology readiness level 4 to 7. In general, these levels are having some challenges. It could be coming from product itself. There are much better products already in the market. Maybe better performance products are there in the market, but still we want to bring the research to the society. It could be also business challenges because of lower cost products already in the market, and so on and so on. There are also innovation challenges and process challenges, and these challenges making there is a gap between the research and the deployment, what's happening in the industry. You can see on the left side the resources with the technology readiness levels. One can understand the academia or the research focusing on more the education, more the research. On the right side, the other hill, which is focusing on the deployment, which is basically creating revenue generation, creating new products to the market faster, bringing the products more faster. So in order to bridge the gap between these two hills, we started to fund since I think more than 10 years now, the programs called innovation programs. So one such program is called Bridges. It's exactly bridging the funding gap between academia and the industry. Also another program which is basically jumping from one hill to another. How do we jump from the academia research into to the commercialization? So these two are the programs in principle help our innovation happening within Luxembourg, at least from FNR point of view. And in line with the bridges, we thought the thematically fit program, which is focusing on one particular topic. Here it is 5G communication technologies. So the 5G communication technologies, the topic itself fitting nicely, bringing public institutions and private partners to make sure those innovation challenges that I mentioned, addressed. And who are all the eligible institutions from a public research point of view? Of course, these are the institutions in Luxembourg, and the PI, the principal investigator, must be employed with one of the public research institutions. So in case if the employment of the PI is fixed term, what is at least expected is the remaining period with the institution is covering the full duration of the project. Of course, if you want to read other important guidelines, or also you can ask me in the Q&A if you have any specific questions. You can also refer this slide, which takes you to the link that explains the FNR Bridges guidelines. And what else or need to be considered when you submit to this particular joint call? Of course, the funding amount is up to 700,000 euros for the public institution. This means 100% aid rates, unlike the regular bridges where the company brings some money. But here, since it's a joint call, the companies are get funded by MECO, and the public institutions are get funded by FNR 100%. And this is up to 36 months, 3 years. And if you want to know more about what are the financial guidelines, of course, there are also Q&A sessions coming up in 2 weeks' time. We will also address those topics. But still, if you want to read it, what are the financial items, you can always refer FNR financial regulations. And of course, FNR promotes open access policy, meaning all the dissemination happening available to public, available to the research community. Of course, one has to follow also the research integrity guidelines, which is set by FNR. And we also encourage the data management plan exist upfront, so that we know the data is widely shared and used for the research community to promote more better research. And the communication guidelines also presented in the slide. You can have a look in case if you are curious about how these to be communicated between the stakeholders. And part of the application, you will also submit the conflict of interest forms. So with that, I hand over to my colleague Ernest, who can also talk about the objective behind this joint call from MECO's point of view, and also will explain the funding conditions.
Thank you for this great introduction, and for the granting authority, Ministry of the Economy. I'm working at the Ministry of Economy in the General Directorate of Industry, New Technology and Research, and with a focus on state aid and industrial development. So in the next minutes, we will concentrate on the state aid mechanism for the companies in this, after having seen the specific conditions for public research organizations. We have, in a general manner, we will have different eligibility criteria for the companies, and they are, first of all, these have to be private companies that are registered in Luxembourg, so it's not for non-Luxembourgish companies. And the company must, in a general manner, demonstrate that the company can drive financially this research project, and of course must demonstrate that it has a positive impact on the company. There's one criteria which I'm sure everybody knows already. We cannot grant companies that are undertakings in difficulty. Especially it means that if half of the subscribed capital has disappeared as a result of accumulated losses. We have an example here. Let's say that this share capital is 200k euros. And when we have a look at the annual accounts, we see that the own funds, including share capitals, is only 50,000k. So they are we are below this threshold of 100k, which means half of the share capital. So this company with these figures in the annual accounts are not eligible. There's, however, one exception is for very young companies which are younger of existence. Now, one important thing is, of course, the different intensities of state aid. We are relying here on the state aid regime for research, development, and innovation. It's a law of the 17th May 2017, and it applies for company. And the intensity is relying on two criteria. The first is the type of research, and the second one is the size of the company. We have here a table where we have different combinations of these two criteria, and you can see that this goes up from experimental development of a large company, 40%, up to 80% when we have small with industrial research. These intensities include already the collaboration top-up that is possible in this R&D scheme. The total amount maximum the ministry can give is 700k euros per project, and of course is excluded VAT. Perhaps one word, what's the difference between experimental development and industrial research? When you have the deepest research is in fact industrial research, where you are acquiring new knowledge, and the end of this research will not be a direct commercial application, the prototypes that can be sold. When we go in a more less deep research category is experimental development. This means that we are developing solutions by building on existing knowledge, which can be an outcome of industrial research. Now it's perfectly possible, knowing this, that in one and the same project you can have experimental development and industrial research. So in this case, each type will have its own intensity. And the project, of course, 36 months are concerned. Now for the eligible costs, we have 5 categories that we can show here. Is first of all, personal costs that are directly related to the project. So these are gross salaries on a 12-month basis, including social contributions of the company. We have general costs, which means overhead costs, and it's a lump sum depending when the next law will come in force, but it's between 20 and 25%. We have another type of cost, utilization cost of equipment. That means all the equipment that we are using for the project during these 3 years, and the time you are using it for the project, you can take into account depreciation costs for these equipment. Another category is material and other consumables. In fact, these are, we can call it operating costs. And finally, special costs, which concern especially subcontracting consulting services and different analyses we have to make in the frame of this project. Now, here is the timeline of the call and the different phases. We have two phases. The first one concerns the project outline. It's in fact a brief description of the project. And the second one consists in the full project proposal, where state aid applications are made on one side for MECO, for the company, and the other side of the pro concerning or directly to the AFANA. Now, for the submission, there's a formula that is available on the platform. And these are, in fact, questions. I think it's 12 questions in all, which have to be replied. It relies more on the text. And there will be an evaluation, which will base on the different eligibility and financial viability criteria, which is checked by Lux Innovation. And of course, is also reviewed by the granting authorities in order to know if this project fits with the different call topics and conditions, so that it can go in the second phase. And then finally, there will be a go or no-go decision to go to the second phase, which will in fact the outcome. If you want to have a look just below the timeline, you can see that the project outline is going from the 15th of 11th, was the opening of the call, up to the 9th of February 2024. And after this, for mid-March next year, this go or no-go decision will be the feedback of the organizations for the companies that can go to the phase 2. Now, for the phase 2, we have another submission, as already mentioned. And for preparing this submission, you can rely on Lux Innovation, which is giving coaching for the companies. And you have at this point to deliver 2 submissions. One for the MyGishi, this concerns the companies, and as mentioned, for the research organizations, it's the AFANA grant management system. The evaluation, of course, will be made afterwards on basis of the criteria that have been proposed in the call document. And when we have now a look at the timeline, you see that from the 25th of March next year, the full project proposals can be submitted until the 23rd of May. It's roughly 2 months. In July, of the FNR, and finally in October next year, MECO State Aid Commission will give advice to the Minister of the Economy for the different status that can be granted. Now, for the qualification one, companies and pros are concerned. It's of course a check if the project is in line with the call objective or topics and the completeness of the different information that has been given. Now, concerning especially the companies, we have the state aid eligibility criteria and co-funding capacity, which we mentioned before. There are, of course, documents that have been given with the application. Of course, a project description and the CVs of the principal investigators. For the company especially, there has been an organigram for determining the size of the company and also the accounts to check the criteria of enterprise in difficulties. And finally, also a cash flow forecast to see the viability and also the impact in the financial optics. Finally, we have evaluation submissions for the second phase. There we have 3 categories. We have relevance, then implementation. In fact, it means the quality and the efficiency of the project plan, and finally the impact. I will not go in detail here, but let's have a quick look at them. For the relevance, of course, we have the project idea. Is it clear? Is there pertinence of the objectives? The level of innovation, scientific and technical maturity. For implementation, we have coherence and effectiveness of the work plan. We have competencies and experience and complementary of the individual persons and members of the consortium. We have level of ambition of this project, and also we have a closer look to the security criteria, meaning cybersecurity, and concerning impact, we have economic and social added value of the project, strengths of the competitiveness and growth of the company involved. We have contribution to the project, and of course, we would like to see projects that have more innovative and a more, let's say, create new knowledge than only a combination of others. So here we are. These are different criteria. I think that's all I have to say at this moment. So thank you very much for your listening and your attention. I will now hand over to Erik, which will take the part of Lux Innovation. Erik, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ernest, and colleagues, and good morning to everyone. So my name is Erik Lauer, and I am working for Lux Innovation in the national funding team. So in my presentation, I will briefly present to you the support that Lux Innovation will offer to all interested companies during the 2 phases of the call, and I will give you a short overview of the research industry collaboration platform. So during the first phase of the call, Lux Innovation will assist you by raising awareness on the eligibility and financial viability checks, and we will show you how to document these elements. This will mainly be done by the means of 2 Q&A sessions, which I will show you in more detail on the next slide. For the second phase, we will then support the applicant companies by reviewing and stress testing their applications. This especially regarding to the innovative nature of the project, the business model and exploitation plan, but also the financial capacity. In addition to this, we can also offer support in some other domains, such as intellectual property, relationship building, but also project financing. So on this slide, you can now see the dates and topics of the 2 Q&A sessions that we will organize during the first phase of this call, and for which you can already register on the platform. We will start with the first Q&A session on the 12th of December, where we'll explain a bit more in detail the main eligibility criteria, which have already been briefly presented by Ernest. As well, in addition to this, we will also go over the eligible project costs and how to estimate these. And during this session, we will also focus on the required co-financing capacity and how the companies should document this. Then on the 30th of January, we will also organize a completeness check with more information on the required attachments, as well as a final Q&A session before the deadline of this 5G joint call. In addition to these 2 Q&A sessions, you can of course also have a look at the FAQ section on the platform, which we will regularly update with the most relevant questions. So now we can have a short look at the research industry collaboration platform. So for those of you who have not yet visited the platform, here you can find all the news and relevant information on the different joint calls, as well as all the replays and presentation slides of the webinars. So I would then, of course, also kindly invite all of you to create your own account on the platform via the link shown on this slide. So this first step is necessary before you can then start your project application or see the already shared ideas. So on this slide, you can see where to select the joint call 5G communications technologies with the official text and further information on the procedure of the call. As illustrated on the right side, you can browse here the existing project ideas that have already been published by other applicants, or you can also share your own idea to find potential new partners. And most important, this is where you can also create your application for the phase one, which needs to be filled in and submitted directly on this platform. So with this being said, I want to thank you all for attending this webinar and the attention, and I would suggest that we now move on to the Q&A part of today's webinar.
Okay, well, thank you all for the presentations. Taking over again over here. I think so far we only had one question, and Ernest was so kind to answer that directly in the chat. And the question was, does it mean that the maximum total budget for the joint project is 1.4 million euros with an equal split of 700K for the company and for the public organization? And yes, that is the case. So do we have any more questions? Anybody? Don't be shy. Yes. So we got 3 more. Can a public research institute take part in multiple projects? Second question for the project, can the entire be industrial research or should it be a mix between IR and ED? And the third one was, how many companies can be involved in the project? Who wants to take that one?
I can start from the first one, so then my colleagues can complement for the second and third for sure. So the first question is about, can public research institution take part in multiple projects? I think yes. So there is no problem how many number of projects one particular institute is participating. End of the day, what is important is the quality of applications. There is no rule that prohibits to participate multiple projects.
And I would assume the upper limit is basically the total budget available that limits the number of projects that can be accepted.
Yeah, always these joint calls are very competitive than the regular calls. I would like to point that again. So that's what we have seen from the past calls. Also in this call, having the budget upfront, and then I think these are very highly competitive calls than the regular ones.
Okay, second question. Can it be entirely industrial research or should it be a mix between IR and ED?
Yes, of course, it can be a mix, but it can also be entirely industrial research. There's really from 0 to 100% of each. All these combinations are possible. Often there is a part of experimental development to create something that is nearer to an application. As long as we are industrial research, we cannot use the new knowledge directly in a solution. So very often, by experience, we know that we have mostly two of the parts, and I think especially here, it's probably the case.
Okay. How many companies can be involved in the project? I guess that means in one project.
Yes. I think, Ernest, you can answer. There's no limit at as well.
There's no limit. There's no limit, knowing that the more partners you have in the consortium, you will have 2 limitations. The first one is things become more complicated to organize. And the second one, if the project is larger, you're risking the project risking to go well above the available budget from both sides for the project.
There is one thing I would like to add, is that it's not only limited to the companies. There is also the possibility to have a public administration which can also take part in the call. But there is the only restriction to this that it has to be a subcontractor of a company because of the granting scheme. But there's no the communes or let's say they are not excluded from the call.
Good. Then what balance are you looking for between the FNR and MECO co-funding? I think it's only capped by the 700K each, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, that's correct.
So that was an easy one. Does the partner company have to contribute 15% to the FNR bridges part as for a standard call?
No, that's exactly I mentioned also in the slide. So there is no need to bring that 15%. So this is 100% aid rates for the public institution.
Then we have, can several companies take part in? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yes, I want to add in this case that even if the company is not paying participation to the public research organization, however, there should be at least 10% of public organization, research organization part. So there cannot be there cannot be a project without at least 10% of contribution of public research organization, because this is the limit in the law, the lower limit in the law to benefit from the 15% top up on the normal intensities. So as the collaboration is mandatory here, so it has to be more than 10%.
Okay. Then can several companies take part in the same project? If so, will they each have to file an application on MyGuichet with a project description? But I think that was already sort of addressed by Mark, saying, hey, no, you can, of course, you can form a consortium with a couple organizations, but then you need to sort out who takes the lead and make sure that everything is filed in according to the requirements.
Yeah, maybe can I add there, Rolf? Yeah, so it's just one application. So so it's just one joint application. It's not that each company applies. It's one joint application filled by all the companies.
And next question there is: do you expect somebody to lead the thing? So sorry, it links directly to that one. So does it have to? Go ahead.
Maybe just to complete Ralph and Sakti. So there is indeed one project application or one project description filled out by the members, but each member needs to submit at their funding authority. So if there is a company, the company will need to submit at the MECO. If it's a research institute, it needs to submit at the FNR. But indeed, the project description is the same for all the consortium members. And then afterwards, there are separate, for instance, the budget or other attachments which need to be submitted by the company will then be submitted by the ministry. But yes, indeed, there's one project description, but the different partners need to submit at their respecting granting authorities.
What happens if you have two companies in there? One for the Ministry of Economy or two?
Two.
Okay. So do you have any expectations who should take the lead on the project, research or industry?
I mean, so maybe I can explain a little bit on the joint call, expectations. So the joint call, maybe I am repeating myself several times. It's a one application. It's a collaborative project. So the collaboration is the key here. So one contact point from company, one contact point from industry are required. So if you ask who will drive, it's both. The answer is both. But of course, like Eric also mentioned, this application, the form will be submitted to MyGuichet. the application is also submitted to our grant management system, the FNR grant management system. So I think this answers, but still, if you ask, is it the industry drives or the public? It's the consortium drives. I would say so. There will be one contact point from public research institutions. That's where the eligibility criteria I explained in the slide shows you, having a permanent work contract in the public research institution. Also, the company rules come into picture, but each one will have dedicated person of contact, PIs.
But it doesn't mean, for example, that project management has to be done by either side or so, because usually it's like, as far as I'm concerned, from the ones where we participated in the past, there was always one party who was, high brackets, in charge in terms of project management or such thing, but there's no preference on that part.
Yeah. Okay. That's their way of working, right? So it's all internal topics, but of course for the system we need contact for one contact from each entities at least. And then of course when you put the whole chart, people involved, that's different thing. So the question here is, who is the PI, the principal investigator? Of course, the principal investigator from public research institutions, one person, and the principal investigator from the company side is one person at least. Multiple persons always also possible.
Okay, and can the same PIs be in different projects? That's the next question that we have over here.
So of course, I mean, I think these are the questions we don't set any rule here, meaning unlike in other funding programs. I understand the source for such questions. For at least for the joint call, there is no limitation for number of submissions one PI can do. But of course, in the previous calls we mentioned, having one project at one time is always good. It's just a recommendation. But if one can manage multiple projects, then we need to see such cases. But we have not come across such situations so far. But on the rule side, no, one can submit many applications.
Okay, unless he's booking 75% of his time in both projects.
Yes, we need to see. Then yeah.
Okay. Well, the next one is kind of the same way around. The other way around is can a private company present two proposals with different objectives regarding 5G? Ernest, I think that's a yes. Huh?
Indeed, they can do. What we are looking at, of course, is at least at the end of phase one, if the personal resources, human resources in the company are available to manage two projects, especially when you have key persons that are working on these projects. But there's no problem.
Okay.
Companies can even make more than two proposals if they can manage.
Okay, the next one, that's for Eric. I think 5G communication is quite broad. Who's the contact person at Lux Innovation or FNR to have a preliminary feedback on project eligibility?
Thank you, Ralph, for the question. Yes, I think this is indeed the purpose of the first phase of this joint project call. So where a first draft of a project and also the needed documents to check the eligibility for the companies, but also the research institute are submitted, and then after this phase, based on a certain quality threshold, certain projects will be retained and then enter into the second phase, where Lux Innovation can support in a more proactive way in also assisting during the project application as discussed. But in the first phase, this will be done after the submission of the first phase.
Okay. And I think the last one we currently have is the Research Institute expected to contribute with their own funding in any way, or is this covered 100% by the FNR?
It's 100% by FNR.
Okay, so just for clarification on that side. Okay, so we're through the questions that were here. So as Eric said in the presentations, we have another session, or actually we have two more sessions. So, and if because usually I know how these things go, you start working on things and then suddenly you have a couple questions popping up. Don't waste them in the bin. spare them for next time, or shoot them out to us in the meantime, and we will make sure that this is either covered in the presentation or the Q&A session then next time. Good. Anybody else? Any questions? I could say speak up now or don't, but we have 2 more sessions, so I'm not going to do that. So, gentlemen, anybody of you, any more things that was crossing your mind or that you would like to address at this stage?
Not really from my side.
No.
Perfect. And I think we are pretty much through the session, a little bit ahead of the time. So thanks a lot. Thanks a lot to our audience for attending, sticking with us. I hope that was fruitful. And as mentioned at the beginning, this session is recorded. And as the reminder for the next Q&A session, as Eric said, that's going to be on the 12th of December for the completeness check, for the Q&A session and eligibility criteria. And well, we're eagerly looking forward to interesting projects.
Thank you. Yeah, all the best to the next sessions, and all the best for the preparation for the phase 1.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you.
See you around.
Bye.
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 Bye.